key concept we want to explore in Chapter 8 is the idea of profit maximization. Another way to think about this is how do we know what price firms will charge? How do firms decide what price it is that they want to charge for their products? And to do this, we have to go sort of walk through the mechanics of thinking about how these firms will make these decisions. The assumption that we're going to make is that firms want to maximize their profits, right? That's the key thing that they want to do. For them, they want to make the most profit possible. And we know, generally speaking, right, from our earlier discussions, that profit is total revenue minus total cost. So how do we know when a firm has maximized profit? Well, one of the ways to do that is to understand that we want firms to continue to produce as long as the money they are earning from producing one more unit is greater than the cost of producing that additional unit. Okay? So in more sort of formal language, price-searching firms, right, competitive firms, must estimate their marginal costs, right? So they must guess what those marginal costs are. They must estimate their marginal revenues, and they have to set their price such that they will sell all of those units and only those units for which what we call the marginal revenue is expected to be greater than the marginal cost. So what does all that mean, right? What that means is firms want to find a price that indicates the quantity they will sell, and that quantity has to be such that the marginal revenue from selling the last unit of the good, that is the gain in revenue from selling one more unit of the good, is just greater than the marginal cost. As soon as it becomes more costly to produce the good than the revenue you get from selling it, you don't want to do it because you're losing money. We can see this visually, right? If we think about marginal revenue and marginal cost here, and we think about marginal revenue declining as we produce more of the good, and we've assumed here that the marginal costs of production are constant, right? And you can see the area, right, where where marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. As we keep going, right, across this from left to right, we keep gaining, right? Marginal revenue is just slightly greater than marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, right? And as we move along here, right, the difference gets smaller and smaller until we get right to that intersection point, right, at which they're equal. If we go past that, however, the cost of producing the good is greater than the revenue we earn from it, and we lose money as we produce more. We produce more than this quantity right here, right? It's this quantity right here where marginal revenue and marginal cost are exactly equal. That's where we maximize profits. Anywhere to the left of that, we can earn more profits by moving back to that intersection. Anywhere to the right of it, we're losing money, and we can gain profits by reducing our output and moving back to that intersection. So the point I want to make here is that we want to find where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That's where profits are maximized. And so what I want to do is to walk through the example from the textbook and from the PowerPoint involving our friend Ed Syke, who's running the movie theater at his college, the film festival at his college. If you don't have the book and the PowerPoint handy, this would be a good time to pause this video and get both of those out. And in particular, I want to look at for Ed Syke, we want to start with slide number 4 in the PowerPoint for Chapter 8. So pause here and go pick that up. Okay, so we have Ed, who's running the campus film series. But first, we're going to look at his costs, right? What does it cost him to run to do this, right? Well, a total of $2,200, $1,800 to rent the film, $250 to rent the auditorium. He pays someone to push the start button on the movie, and a couple people, ticket takers. All told, it comes out to $2,200. All right, so that's his cost. But what about his revenues? Suppose the theater he is showing the film in holds 700 people. What's his goal here? Does he want to fill all the seats, or does he want to maximize profit? Two different things, right? Filling all the seats may not be the same as maximizing profit. We'll talk about why that is in just a minute. But suppose, right? Suppose he wants to maximize profits, right? And so how do we do that? As we've said, we look to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. All right. So what's his marginal cost of producing here? How much more does it cost to show the movie to one more person? Right? If he adds one more person, if he sells one more ticket, how much does that affect his costs? Answer, 0. Right? All of his costs are fixed. The $1,800 rental is fixed for the film. All the costs of showing it, the room rental, all that, they're all fixed. It doesn't change with the number of people who see the film. So his marginal cost of production is zero, right? He has no additional cost from producing. So what about marginal revenue? Way to think about marginal revenue here, it's the additional revenue expected from the particular action that we're considering. So if we sell one more unit, that is, we sell one more ticket, how much more revenue do we earn? Okay, and so here's where we get tricky, right? If you have your book out, you can look at the table on page 224, right? That will show you the particular things here. I'm sorry, not 200 page. I'm sorry, page 184. My mistake. Page 184. If you have your book out, you can see that, and you can eyeball it, and you can see that his revenues are highest, right? That is, he earns the most total revenue if he charges $5 a ticket. Okay. Every ticket before 500 adds to his total revenues. That is, if he only sells 450, he can add to revenues by selling as many as 500. But every ticket after 500 subtracts from his total revenues and therefore his profits, right? And this is the important question here, right? Why? Because you might think to yourself, well, why doesn't he want to sell as many seats as possible? Wouldn't that make the most revenue if its marginal costs are zero, right? Isn't selling more tickets a better thing? But what you have to remember here is the role of elasticity, right? If he wants to sell more tickets, he has to cut his price, right? That's the only way to induce the demand curve slope downward. That's the only way to induce more people to buy those tickets. But if he lowers his price, he has to lower his price not just to the additional customers he's trying to attract in, but to all of his customers. Right? The assumption here is that he charges one price to everyone. So if he charges a price of 5, right, and at 5 he sells 500 tickets, he earns $2,500. Great. And he thinks to himself, well, what would happen if I tried to sell 600 tickets instead, right? Or sell 550 instead. Selling 550 tickets instead requires that he drop his price to $4.50, right? But if he drops his price to $4.50, remember here, he's dropping it not just for the additional tickets he's going to sell, the additional 50 he hopes to sell, but for for everyone, right? And so if you have the PowerPoint, you can see the math here, which is on slide number 8 in the PowerPoint, right? If he tries to sell those 550 tickets, he's going to have to lower his price. What does he gain by doing this? He gains 50 tickets that he sells at $4.50 each. That is, he gains $225 by selling 50 more tickets. But he also loses 50 cents per ticket on the other 500, which if he charged $5, he would receive $5 each for, but now he's charging $4.50. So 500 tickets on which he is giving up 50 cents per ticket means he's losing $250. So it's true he gains $225 by selling 50 more tickets. But in order to sell those 50 tickets, he had to reduce his price to everyone, which means in addition to the $225 gain, there's a $250 loss from those lower prices. So the net effect here is a loss, right, of $25. His marginal revenue from selling those additional 50 tickets is a negative 25, right? And we can do the same thing the other way. What if he tried to reduce the number of tickets? Well, what if I raise my price and sell fewer tickets, right? Maybe my revenues would be higher there. So suppose he wanted to sell 450 tickets, right? Okay, so what happens? He's going to raise his price, and it's true he's going to earn more on the 450 tickets that he sells, but remember, he's not going to sell 50 tickets, and he's out that revenue as well, right? So even though he gains more per ticket on the 450 he sells, he loses revenue that he would have got by selling 50 additional tickets. It turns out, right, that both 450 and 550 do not earn him as much as he would make at selling exactly 500 tickets at $5 a piece. At no other point is his revenue higher. We can see on slide number 9 here how we might draw what we call the marginal revenue curve, right? We can see that at those various prices on slide number 9, also this is on page 187, figure 8.2, right? At a price of 7, he only sells 300 tickets. At a price of 6, 400, and so on. We can see the total revenue that at each one that he sells, right? But we can also see that on a per ticket basis, right, that his marginal revenue, the gain in revenue from going to 300 to 400 is $3 per ticket. The gain from going from 400 to 500 is $1 per ticket. And then we start to lose marginal revenue as we move on. So the point at which his marginal revenue is equal to zero, that is the point at which marginal revenue crosses zero, right, is exactly 500. And so that's where marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal to each other. That's how we determine what the price is, and therefore what the quantity, what the price is that this firm will charge, and what the quantity is as well, right? So the key here is remembering that we want to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. That tells us the quantity. We look at the demand curve. That tells us the price, and then we can calculate profits from there. The other thing we can do real quick is to look at what happens if his marginal costs are positive. Now suppose that the rental for the film, instead of being a flat $1,800, is $800 plus $2 per ticket. So for every ticket he sells, he has to pay $2 to the movie rental company. Now we know his marginal cost is 2. Right? And so now if we want to find the profit maximizing price, we have to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. Marginal cost is 2. We look for where marginal revenue is 2. It turns out, if you look at the graph that we were in the book we're looking at earlier, that at a price of 6 and a quantity of 400, marginal revenue is equal to 2. So if his costs are such that his marginal costs are positive, right, he will charge $6. He'll sell 400 tickets. He'll earn $2,400. What will his cost be, right? His total revenues are $2,400. His cost will be the $800 flat fee plus $2 per ticket. 400 tickets times 2 is another $800. You can see these calculations again on slide number 10. Plus the $400 for hiring the film operator and ticket takers and all that. So his costs are $2,000. All right. So what's interesting is that with this different cost structure, he ends up charging a higher price, selling fewer tickets, but profiting more. His profit this way is $400, right? His profit the other way was $2,500 minus the 22, which is $300. So he actually profits a little bit more this way from having the cost structure where he pays per ticket. Notice, though, he sold fewer tickets, right, and charged people more, but his profits were greater. What all of this goes to show is that when we think about firms' profits, right, when we think about how firms decide what price to charge and how many units, right? What matters is to them is maximizing profit, not the total number of units they sell, right? They're not interested in maximizing their total revenue. They're interested in maximizing their profit. And in the real world, as firms produce more units of a good, the marginal costs of production are positive and are often increasing, right? That the more you produce, the more expensive it is to do so. And so one of the things firms have to decide is how much output should we produce? It's tempting to sort of think, well, why won't firms just, charge a super high price, or why won't they charge a super low price and sell as many units as they can, right? It might be, again, tempting to think, especially if the good is elastically demanded in the relevant range, keep the price low, sell lots of units, make lots of revenue. But to produce those units might be additionally costly. When we talk about maximizing profit, we have to think about both revenue and costs. Okay, because it's maximizing profit, not maximizing revenue, not minimizing cost, but maximizing profit. One last thing to think about that we'll discuss in the next video. If he only sells 400 tickets, he's got a 700-seat auditorium. What about all those empty seats, right? I mean, isn't it interesting that are there possible bargains here that are not being made, right? Certainly it seems like he could make money off those seats somehow, right? So you might want to think about how he might do that. We'll come back in the next video and talk a little bit about the strategies that Ed Psych might use, but also that firms in the real world can use when faced with a similar kind of situation.